Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mondays with Vish. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Vish Kumaran. And today we're going to be playing a game of revisionist history. But before we get to that, I was on the phone with Vish about an hour and a half ago, and he said something that was so smart yet obvious at the same time that it was like, oh, yeah, of course. That is the show, and that is what's going on with the 49ers right now. So before we get into it, I just want to say, hey, Vish, how you doing?
What's up, Grant? I see you cut the intro a little bit shorter.
Yeah, people said it's too long. Everyone has an opinion, but I try to give people what they want. And some people said it was too long, so we cut it from 30 to 10 seconds. I think it's okay. Hard to complain about 10 seconds. And you need a little buffer.
True.
You need a little buffer.
You know, it works for me because I was wearing the same exact shirt in the intro. So the old intro, if it came across, people would be like, dang, Vish, what you doing? You got the same shirt. That's like 4 weeks apart, same shirt. But luckily now people don't know that.
It's true. You're not allowed to wear the same shirt more than once. If you're
No,
you can't do that.
No.
All right, so hold on. This is what we're talking about. So here, let me just put the little banner up. End all suspense. All right, so this is what Vish told me on the phone about an hour and a half ago. He said, Grant, there is no quarterback competition. And I understood exactly what he was talking about after he explained it. So why don't you explain this to our viewers, how this just doesn't exist?
Look, yeah, so I've seen this go back and forth on Twitter. You know, I try to not be on Twitter too much, but at the same time, if you're doing content creation, being on Twitter, it's useful for you. It's not because you get to kind of get an idea of where people are leaning and what kind of things people are talking about so that you can direct into doing something that people prefer. So the conversation on Twitter constantly and the arguing is just going back and forth about whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Jimmy, whether it's an open competition, all of that. And yeah, I don't understand that, Grant, because something I've maintained throughout this draft process is, to me, this is not about Jimmy Garoppolo versus Trey Lance. This is all about Trey Lance, right? And I think that the thing that makes it being all about Trey Lance is you have to go back to what they gave up to get him. 2 first-round picks and swapped a third to go up to get a guy with a top 5 pick, right? In Jacksonville, who's the guy from day one? It's Trevor Lawrence. With the Jets, who's the guy from day one? It's Zach Wilson, right? Yes. Yeah. The Niners, the luxury they have is they don't have to force their guy to be the guy from day one. But it's still all about that guy. So to me, this isn't a competition. This is about Trey Lance's readiness. If Trey Lance is ready, Trey Lance starts. If Trey Lance is not ready, the luxury they have is they don't have to force him to play the way the Jets have to force Zach Wilson to play, whether they know he's ready or not, or the Jaguars have to force Trevor Lawrence to play, whether he's ready or not, because they have a starting caliber quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. But the days that this is Jimmy Garoppolo's job to lose and all of that, I understand they're saying that, and it's the right rhetoric to say, because you could be in August and you could feel that Trey Lance isn't as far along as you want, and you look at this roster and you say, we need to go win, and we have a quarterback we can win with in Garoppolo. So it's the right rhetoric to say that it's his job to lose now. But if Lance is ready in August, Lance is going to start. If Lance is ready week 5, Lance is going to start week 5. If Lance is ready week 10, Lance is going to start week 10. This is no longer about Jimmy Garoppolo. This became all about Trey Lance when they forfeited their future and they mortgaged it all to go get this particular quarterback. So it's no longer about whether, hey, he beats Jimmy in the competition or anything. It's all about this guy. He's the present. He's the future. And that's where I think the conversation has gone a little bit astray, because people are talking about this as if it's a directly 1 versus 1. This isn't about Jimmy being better than Trey Lance, because Jimmy could still be better than Trey Lance at certain things. But if Kyle and the team deem Trey Lance ready, and now I don't know what that ready is. You don't know what that ready is. Kyle said he can't even describe that ready. It's a ready that everybody will know. Yep. And so if that ready is something everybody will know, if they know it at that point, he's going to play. Like, for example, this would be like if the Chiefs, right, the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes thing, right, everybody wants to compare it to this situation. But Grant, what did the Chiefs do? Alex Smith was an MVP candidate in 2017. What did they do the next year? They traded him. Yeah. Why did they trade him? He's not the guy.
Right.
The guy is Patrick Mahomes. It didn't matter how well Alex Smith played. He had his career best year. It didn't matter. The guy is Patrick Mahomes. Just like that, it doesn't matter how well Jimmy Garoppolo plays. It doesn't matter at all anymore. This isn't about Jimmy Garoppolo. This is about Trey Lance. If Trey Lance is ready week 1, Trey Lance plays week 1. If Trey Lance isn't ready till next year, then Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start the entire year. But this isn't Jimmy versus Lance. This is just Lance.
It's Lance versus Lance. So if Lance isn't playing by year 3, it's because Lance was the wrong pick, not because Jimmy Garoppolo just kept him on the sideline and it just fought for his job. No, there should be nothing Jimmy Garoppolo can do, given that Trey Lance is what we think he is, that what he was billed to be.
Look, there should be nothing he can do. You know why, Grant? Because if there was something he can do, then the 49ers would have been confident that maybe there's something he can do, and they wouldn't have traded up to pick 3 a month before the draft. When they traded up to pick 3 a month before the draft, that's a drastic move. And you talked about it when we were talking about it on the phone, right? Like, I love how people pick and choose what they want to hear from Kyle's press conferences. When Kyle spends an entire press conference telling you that we felt we needed to get a starting quarterback, and we wanted to get a starting quarterback, we don't listen to that, right? Like, what does that mean by a starting quarterback? But when he says one time in passing to answer a question that it'll be tough to beat Jimmy Garoppolo out, we listen to that and we harp on it. See, Kyle said it. But we pick and choose, right, what we want to use to fit our narrative. But the bottom line is what Kyle said in both those situations is true, right? Garoppolo is a solid starting quarterback, so it would be tough for a rookie to beat him out. But at the same time,
which is why they moved up from 12 to 3. They could have stayed at 12 and taken Mac Jones, who would have a chance to beat out Jimmy Garoppolo or not. The whole idea was to move up to 3 and get what he called a starting quarterback.
Right? And what did Adam Schefter say? The 49ers believed that Trey Lance was more ready to start day 1 than Mac Jones, right? If you remember right after they drafted him, that was one of the things Adam Schefter said. Now, I guess we can't believe Schefter, right? Because Schefter said Mac Jones, so Schefter is always wrong. So even though that fits what I'm going to say, I can't say that. Sorry, Schefter. I'm messing. Yeah. But what I was going to say was he said that. So to me, like this conversation, it being like, oh, if Jimmy plays great in camp, Trey Lance, he's going to have to sit 2 years. Jimmy isn't Brett Favre. Jimmy can't sideline a quarterback. Jimmy isn't Aaron Rodgers. He can't sideline Jordan Love. Tony Romo I'm going to get killed for saying it, but he's one of those guys that if you look at his stats, you look at everything, you could make an argument that he's right with the other guys in his era that will go to the Hall of Fame, the Big Bens, all those guys, right? Him, Carson Palmer, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford are the guys that were really good, just never the elite guys, you know?
Yes.
They were in the 5 to 13 range. He couldn't even sideline Dak. They didn't even give him that with Dak Prescott.
Right.
Once Dak Prescott started playing well, it became about Dak Prescott. So to me, it doesn't matter, right? Like, you can say, like, we don't know, right? Like, that's the other thing, right? We don't know what that readiness is. We don't know how Trey Lance has been looking. We don't know how he's been consuming the offense.
He hasn't played in pads yet. So
all we have is to go off of his film from 2 years ago in NDSU and one game last year where he was mostly bad, right? The game this year, that showcase game, he was pretty terrible. It was probably the worst game of his college career.
Yeah.
But so since we don't know those things, we can't make any assumptions on whether he's ready to start or not. How do we know? Like, the same argument we make for him to be ready to start, the people making the argument saying he's not ready to start, how the hell do you know he's not ready to start?
Right. So, but what I'm saying is if he shows it in camp and he shows it in preseason, the Niners aren't going to be like, well, this is still Jimmy's team for one more year. I feel like there's a narrative going around that, like, yeah, Trey Lance is here, but this is still Jimmy's team for one more year.
Yeah, that's the point right there, Grant.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not about if he shows he's ready, he's gonna play. But if he shows he's not ready, the luxury is that they have Jimmy, who they can win with. They have a really good roster, so they don't have the need to play him. Like, the Jaguars have to play Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has to play well for them to be a good football team. Same thing with the Jets and Zach Wilson. Hell, even the Bears, they have Andy Dalton, who, you know, is probably like a tier below Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of quarterback. If Jimmy Garoppolo is just that middling type starter kind of guy that you can start for 16 games, Dalton is kind of the fringe starter backup type. With their coaching, their roster, they can afford to have Andy Dalton start all 16 games and have real aspirations as a football team. At some point, Justin Fields is going to have to take over. That's the luxury the Niners have, right? That's the luxury they have with Garoppolo. But at the same time, because Garoppolo is a luxury, they're not going to rely totally on him and say, oh, hey, Trey, I know you're looking good. I know we feel really good about your progress, but this is Jimmy Garoppolo. We can't sit Jimmy Garoppolo. Heck no. If he's ready, he's playing.
Right. I mean, if they're worried about disrespecting Jimmy Garoppolo, that went out the window when they traded up for Trey Lance. It's no longer Jimmy Garoppolo's team, and I feel like you see that from both of their actions. Trey Lance is the one organizing everything this offseason. Jimmy Garoppolo is doing, I don't know. So it seems like it's in the Niners' interest for Trey Lance to show enough in preseason and camp to the point where the Niners can get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo as soon as possible. I mean, that's the best case scenario.
Right. They and the way the situation is laid out, actually, it's beautifully done. This is masterful in terms of being able to play the PR game, right?
Yes.
Because they can say things to fit a certain narrative. If Lance isn't ready, the narrative that Lance isn't ready is never going to come out. Because they can just say, we have Jimmy Garoppolo, and Lance can't start this year because we have Jimmy Garoppolo, right?
That was the plan.
So
that was the plan.
They can drive the messaging that way. And if Lance is ready, hey, the guy we picked, he's already ready. Look at him.
Yeah.
This
he's ahead of schedule.
Right. He's ahead of schedule, all of that. He beat out, and they can say he beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, who we thought there was no way he could beat him out. And
exactly.
So the way they can structure this in terms of the PR, it's a really easy sell for the 49ers. But if anybody thinks that this job is about a competition or about Jimmy Garoppolo, they're just lying to themselves. Because if this job was about Jimmy Garoppolo, we would not be trading up, or the San Francisco 49ers, excuse me, not we, I'm not a we, but we would not be sitting here watching the San Francisco 49ers trade up 3 or 2 first-round picks and swap a third one to go get a quarterback because they have a guy who's already their guy.
Well, so what Vish and I are saying is in the NFL, there's always the truth and the PR spin. And you can't blame these teams for doing the PR spin. They're multi-billion-dollar organizations that want to get their narrative out there that suits them because everything that they do needs to be what's best for their organization. But if you're a vet following the team, you always know you can try to guess what the truth, what the subtext is. And that's what Vish is very good at. That's what I have some experience doing, and that's what we're talking about right now. Don't take the Niners at face value on this one because it suits them to have certain narratives, and they're entitled to those narratives. You just, as a diehard fan watching this show on June 28th, when you could be doing literally anything, you should know what really is going on. Yeah,
the bottom line is, right, I don't think they're lying to us per se.
No.
They're just not telling us the entire truth. And I think this is a situation, to me, frankly, I think it's a very easy one to read. I think that most people that follow the 49ers, if the Arizona Cardinals had this same exact situation, they would read it easily. I'm pretty sure most people would have said, I'm sure Sam Bradford was pegged to start 16 games, if I remember correctly, for Steve Wilkes, Mike McCoy, that regime, and Josh Rosen was starting by week 4. I think most of us as Niners fans figured, this is Rosen. Rosen's going to be the guy, even though Sam Bradford they paid him a lot of money to come be their bridge quarterback that season.
That's true.
So I think that this situation is actually a very easy one to read. When you trade that much up, that's your guy. That guy's the present. That guy's the future. That guy's everything. Your franchise is all about Trey Lance. The franchise was about Jimmy Garoppolo when they paid him, but it's no longer at that point because they sought avenues to replace him, and now they got a guy who they think should replace him at some point, if not immediately.
Yeah, and Patrick Mahomes sat on the bench for a season. He was not the number 3 pick in the draft.
No.
He was not 3 first-round picks. Every game that Trey Lance doesn't play is too bad from the 49ers perspective.
So I think there's another difference in that situation too, right? Like the Mahomes situation also, like I've talked about how I thought Mahomes could have probably started as a rookie. I mean, he had one of the greatest regular seasons for a quarterback ever in his second year. So I think he might have been able to be competent.
But he was going from air raid to pro style. Right. And there were things like this guy's going from pro style to pro style.
Right.
Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Conceptually, in terms of their offenses, in terms of what they ask him to do, it's not too far apart because they're not an offense that's going to ask him to drop back and stuff, which is the stuff we have not really seen him do.
Right.
But what I wanted to touch on is the Alex Smith versus Garoppolo. The Chiefs, to me, were in a situation where they felt much more comfortable with Alex Smith as their quarterback. They kind of realized that there is a realized ceiling with Alex Smith. They might not win a Super Bowl, but they had a 4-year run of being a playoff team, winning that AFC West, being very comfortable with Alex Smith. With Garoppolo, to me, there's a little more tension here because he's gotten hurt. 2 of the 3 years he was supposed to be their starter for 16 games. So there's a little bit more of an urgency for the 49ers to try and get a guy that they can rely upon. For the Chiefs, they knew Alex Smith was Mr. Reliable. They just knew that Mr. Reliable could only get them so far. But they were comfortable with more comfortable, I would say, with Mr. Reliable than they were with the Niners seem to be with Garoppolo, because they whatever, like we watch a decent amount of film and we can break down the X's and O's as to why Garoppolo struggles at these certain things. A lot of people have done it, and you can choose to hear it or you can choose to ignore it. But the bottom line is he has this glaring thing that nobody can't ignore, and that's the fact that he gets injured a lot, and he's missed a lot of games. Right. And when he's not reliable as a starting quarterback, when the most important thing for you is to be available as a starting quarterback, that's where this starts to become even more of a different issue than what the Chiefs had with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes.
Final question on this topic, and then we'll move on. If Trey Lance shows he's ready, whatever that means, Kyle Shanahan said, well, he says you'll sort of know it when you see it, like it'll be kind of apparent. If he shows he's ready, what is your prediction as far as Jimmy Garoppolo's future go? Trade him during the preseason, cut him during the preseason. What do you think?
So last time we did this, I brought up the Sam Bradford situation in Philly, and I said that I think that that's what they should do. But, to be honest, this is a really hard thing to predict. I'm not sure that the Niners will do that. I think they might try and hold on to Jimmy. And heck, I think they might even hold on to him for $25 million. Niners have shown the one thing you can say about Jed York. You can say a lot of things about him. He's not afraid
on players.
To check. He cuts the check.
Players.
And he's willing to do it. He's willing to pay on players who don't even really play for him. Look at how much money they spent to get Dee Ford.
Yep.
So he's willing to cut the check. And I think that given how much he believes in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and given how much pressure is a little bit, Kyle Shanahan, you can see that he's a guy who's really sick of losing. He wants to have a winning season this year. And given what he's gone through, and those situations were self-inflicted, because he kept talking about how his quarterback room was the strongest position on his team in 2019, and he talked about it in 2020, and his backups were Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. I think that unless Jimmy really forces his way out, I think that the Niners will just keep him, because keeping him as their backup quarterback, at least, we can protect ourselves. And I think with Jimmy also, Jimmy's not the kind of guy where there's going to be an immediate pressure where if Lance plays bad, people are just going to be clamoring for Jimmy. I don't view the Niners fan base as that type, and I don't view Jimmy is the kind of guy that people will clamor for like that. So it won't be much of a problem. And if Lance goes down, you have a guy who you can win with, and that your team believes in and everything. And I think that's what they would end up doing. As of right now, I mean, we have 2 practices and like 3 pressers to go off what I'm predicting this, but that's what I think would happen.
Okay. Jeremy Price says, never got to ask you, Grant, but what NFL team do you root for, honestly? Yeah, all 49ers. All 49ers SI. It's a really good team, about 12 riders. You should definitely check us out. Other than that, I don't root for a team. I root for Bishop O'Dowd High School, but I don't really know what they've done recently. And Dwelly. Yeah, team
and
Dwelly.
UCLA.
And UCLA, although I'm definitely rooting for Chip Kelly to get fired. So I have to say I'll take some losses along the way. Sambone Slice says, I'm all for Lance, but they are only promoting the positive. I doubt he magically fixed his mechanics. Shout out to you, Grant. Hey, man, I still feel like even if he misses a few throws high every game, he's still going to be better than Jimmy.
So here's my thing, right? Like, obviously, they're going to promote the high, right? That's why you don't go gaga and retweet the practice video of him making one throw to Mo Sanu and just like break that down and say, oh, look, his mechanics look better and all of that, because everything they're going to put out is going to make him look better. But also, the Niners aren't going to start him if they feel that his mechanical issues are still existent to the point that it's going to hamper their team, which goes back to the ready thing, right? All of this is basically contingent on Trey Lance's readiness. It doesn't matter, right? Like, if the reason the Niners are in kind of a unique and nice situation is that they don't have to force him if those mechanics aren't where they want them to be or whatever issues they've identified, because they haven't been transparent with us on what are the things they want Trey Lance to work on aside from a vague term like mechanical flaws. Like, what is it with his feet? What is it with his arm? What specifically do you want him to be doing? So because of that, I don't think they'll look at him as ready if those things aren't fixed to the point where they don't think he can play. Like, I think that goes all into this question of readiness. And the guy that's making the decision on readiness is not me and Grant. It's Kyle Shanahan. But what Grant and I are saying is that Kyle Shanahan isn't going to make the readiness based on how well Jimmy Garoppolo is playing. It's all going to be based on Trey Lance and only Trey Lance.
That's right. All right, let's play some revisionist history. The idea here is that I started off this morning when I was editing Waruna Pereira's article for All 49ers, and he was saying that you need to have basically 43 of the 55 Super Bowl winners, quarterbacks are Hall of Famers, 43 to 55. And I made me think, he's like, the only ones really that haven't been Hall of Famers who have won it recently are Nick Foles and Joe Flacco. And I was thinking, man, how did the Niners lose to Joe Flacco? So the Niners are one of the more decorated teams in NFL history, along with the Cowboys, Steelers, the Patriots. I mean, this is serious, rarefied air. They were 5-0 in the Super Bowl. And since then, some weird things have happened in the last 10 years. And so we're going to go back and sort of change a couple of things here and there to give the 49ers 7 Super Bowl rings. And so we're going to go through a couple Super Bowls, a couple drafts, a couple free agencies, and just say what we would do in hindsight. So don't get too upset. We definitely have the power of hindsight, and we're not saying we would have made the right call at the time, although, of course, we would have. So Super Bowl 47, Niners fell behind big time, came all the way back. They were inside the 10, going in to win. They had 4 shots to seal the deal. They didn't do it. Vish, what would you do differently in that one game?
First things first, I mean, there's a lot that I wish would happen differently. First things first, I wish that Chris Culliver wasn't put in front of a mic before that Super Bowl. What he said was dumb.
Can't avoid that. Can't avoid that Super Bowl.
It was a very interesting thing. 2, I wish Patrick Willis, I think it was Frank Gore, Vernon Davis, Navarro, Bowman weren't caught by TMZ cameras on the Tuesday before the Super Bowl at a strip club.
Yep.
I wish that didn't happen. Not because I think it changed the outcome of the game, just because I thought it brought up unnecessary reasons. You know, it was an unnecessary conversation that didn't need to be had. Like, they could go to a strip club.
And then when you saw how they fell behind by like 20 points early on, it was like, well, this team seems.
Everybody blamed it on that, right?
Well,
like, I don't mind.
Yes,
I don't mind.
It wasn't the stripper's fault. It was not the stripper's fault. Let's just make that clear. But there were like different things that made it seem like they weren't quite ready for that moment.
Right. So my thing was like, I don't mind if they go to the strip club. I just wish TMZ didn't get camera shots of them going. Like, I don't care. Do whatever you want.
Still, there's always one rule. There's always one rule, Vish. What's the rule? Don't get caught. Always
don't get caught.
Don't get caught.
Right. And then we go to the obviously this is another thing before the game. I wish Jim Harbaugh, his pre-snap management of his offense was always terrible with the 49ers. Yeah. The amount of timeouts, the amount of delay of games, the amount of times the offense didn't get lined up correctly, it was a problem. But for the first play of the Super Bowl, you like that play's rehearsed, right? Yeah. That play's installed. You've been working on it. You know exactly what you want to come out and do, and you execute a 20-yard throw to Vernon Davis. Start off with a bang. And guess what? Pre-snap penalty, that's awful. And that to me is just it's a coaching blunder. The fact that you have a player who lined up incorrectly at that point, that's a coaching blunder. So that's the third thing I would be that ticked me off. So with Jim Harbaugh, that would change. And then obviously there's a lot you can go through in that game and you would like to change. Like, to me, the Niners were just a way more talented team across the board than that Baltimore Ravens team. I thought that Baltimore Ravens defense was a tad overrated. I thought Ray Lewis was over the hill. Ed Reed wasn't the same Ed Reed. T-Sizzle, Terrell Suggs was still a beast, but that Niners offense was loaded with Crabtree and Vernon Davis and Frank Gore and Delaney Walker and Kaepernick. And so, I mean, I could go through that entire game and be like, how the heck do you fall behind so badly when you showed in 9 minutes of that football game, you tied the game up or made it a 2-point football game because you showed you were the better team by far. Yeah. But The one thing I would change is, man, you get down. I think it was first and goal from the 7?
Yes.
Second goal from the 7?
Yes.
The ball going to Michael Crabtree. I mean, I didn't mind them going to Michael Crabtree. Going all 3 times to Michael Crabtree is what, man. One of those
target to Vernon Davis would have been nice.
Right. Or one of those just running the football with Frank Gore. Or finding a creative way to put the ball in Frank Gore's hands. It didn't have to be a run, right? Because they were showing loaded boxes. I mean, they threw the fade on the last play against the cover 0 look. You're not going to run the ball against that look on 4th and goal. But I wish there was some sort of creativity to get the ball to Vernon into Frank Gore's hands. But it was another just comes down to coaching, right? And the reason the Niners teams didn't win under Jim Harbaugh is because they were bad in the red zone. Right. They were always a bad red zone team. There's a reason David Akers set the record for the most field goals made in a season. And they were bad they made too many pre-snap mistakes. And those 2 things just ate them up in that Super Bowl. So, yeah, going back, I would change.
They beat themselves in the Super Bowl. They beat themselves in that Super Bowl.
It just comes down to that red zone creativity, man. And just find a way to get Frank Gore 1 touch, Vernon Davis 1 touch.
1 target, and Crabtree 1 target.
Yeah, right. But
it doesn't have to be 1 player 3 times, the same exact play all 3 times.
Right.
Vish. I need Vish's top 10 quarterbacks. I swear he calls like 5 quarterbacks that are 8 to 12, all top 10. You don't have to give all your top 10 quarterbacks right now.
I have it right here if you want.
All right, go for it.
Mahomes, this is in no particular order. Mahomes, Rodgers, Allen, Brady, Watson, Russell Wilson. So I'm at 6. Lamar, Kyler, Dak. That's 9. And Stafford is the 10th.
Boom. There you go.
And
thank you.
Like the guys that are right around there are like Herbert, Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield. To me, there's 15 top 10 quarterbacks in today's NFL just because of the way the game is and how quarterback friendly it is and how many good quarterbacks there are.
That's why my thing with the Browns, I feel like they could be the best roster in the league, but I don't know if Baker's good enough. My thing. I don't know. Even and Tannehill, like you do kind of need a Hall of Fame level quarterback because, as good as Baker is, as good as Tannehill is, Mahomes in the league making not that much.
So 2 things, don't want to make this a Browns topic, but 2 things that I want to say as pro Baker, because I do think the Browns are going to win the AFC. That was my preseason pick. I made that before the draft itself, but it's subject to change, by the way. Don't hold me to this. If like the Browns flop at 7-10, I might change it before the season. But I think the Browns roster and the way their team is built is very similar to the 2019 Niners and the 2018 Rams. I think Baker Mayfield is just a better quarterback than 2019 Jimmy Garoppolo, 2018 Goff. I think he's better in the pocket than both of them. I think he has a better arm than both of them. I think he's a better thrower than both of them. So that I agree with. And two, to me, it's not about as much having a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's a discussion I think we had when we were talking about quarterback pricing. It's more having a quarterback play at a Hall of Fame level, right? Like you bring up Joe Flacco, right? Whatever you want to say about Joe Flacco, that playoff run, he was spectacular. He played like a Tom Brady. He played like a Peyton Manning. He played like an elite passer. The one thing that the Browns, if you look at, they can be kind of happy about. 1, Baker Mayfield throughout his college career, he played big-time football in big games, right? Throughout his college career. 2, last year against the Chiefs, Baker Mayfield was the best player on the Cleveland Browns. He had a hell of a football game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it was against anything is possible, but he still played really well. And that's where, like, the Garoppolos and the Goffs, they couldn't elevate their play in the playoffs. Their limitations got exacerbated in the playoffs, while Baker Mayfield seemed to elevate his play. So that's where I give the Browns maybe a bit more of a chance.
Good call. All right. Matt says, what's your take on the lights conspiracy Ray Lewis claims? What was his lights conspiracy? That the Niners did it? The NFL did it? The Niners back in the game?
What's Ray Lewis's claims on the suit conspiracy? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's a good question. We're going to leave it at that. Fernando Cruz says strippers like football too. They might. You never know. Anyway, I remember that happening. Like,
and the funny thing is, like, just to touch on that even more, like, that might be the routine, They might have won 14 or 15 football games that year, every Tuesday night, the 5 of them going to a strip club on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night or whenever it was. But it's just when you get caught and you in the Super Bowl, when everything is like multiplied by 2 and the magnifying glass is up there, then it just becomes like, what? Like, why couldn't you just not have TMZ videotape you?
Yeah, come on. Like, get like get a body double, get a mask, get something to throw off the scent.
And go to the private room immediately.
The champagne room. All right. We're going to skip some years here. That was 2012. The rest of the doesn't really matter. I'm going to skip 2017, although, because we've talked about the Patrick Mahomes thing ad nauseum, what they should have done different. Let's go straight to 2018. Which picks would you do differently, and who would you take at those spots?
So 2018 was what? They traded up for Pettis and they drafted Mcglinchey.
Yeah, let's start with those two.
Okay. So if we're going same position, I'd probably stick to Mcglinchey. But to me, so 2018, if I go back to that draft, I was hung up on Minkah Fitzpatrick to kind of be. I wasn't even hung up as Minkah Fitzpatrick to be their safety. If you remember, Minkah Fitzpatrick had major value as a cornerback coming out of Alabama. People thought he could be like a Jalen Ramsey type, but not that elite of an athlete. You know, I thought within playing a zone scheme, which Minkah Fitzpatrick, by the way, would have failed in now that we know like what role he's suited for. Because I was very comfortable with the safeties that the 49ers had in Tart. And at the time it was Adrian Colbert. It should have been Jimmy Ward, but don't get me started on that. But I liked Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then the other guy I liked at that spot was Tremaine Edmonds. And I can't really blame the Niners for not taking them because they took a guy better than him in the third round of that draft in Fred Warner. So in my opinion, looking at how I felt in 2018, both of those picks would have been wrong for the 49ers. And, you know, I can't say Mcglinchey was a wrong pick, but it's hard to stomach when you take a right tackle in the top 10 and he isn't a complete player. He's a very good player in one area, and he's a very average player in the other area. Usually it goes back to that conversation with tackle is a very difficult position to draft. But when you're drafting one in the top 10, usually you're hoping it's a Lane Johnson, it's a Trent Williams, it's a Tyron Smith, who was drafted 11 actually in the 2011 draft. Mcglinchey went 9 in this one. John Ogden, right? Walter Jones. Yep. You're looking for this all-around 10-year starter for you. So looking back, what would I have done? I mean, I can't really say that it should have gone any different because the one guy that really sticks out as a sore thumb is Jair Alexander. And because of his injury questions coming out of Louisville, nobody was valuing Jair Alexander as a top 10 pick at that time. So it's really tough to say, oh, man, like Niners should have taken Jair Alexander because Tart was coming off a fantastic year, and they extended Tart. And Derwin's had injury issues, so you can't really say Derwin. Tremaine Edmonds, Fred Warner's better than him, right? Minkah, I guess, playing single high safety, but they had Jimmy Ward and they were going with Adrian Colbert. So I questioned the entire plan they had at single high safety in the first place. So overall, I'm okay with the Mcglinchey pick. The Pettis pick is where I really start to have a little bit more problems because DJ Chark to me is better and he would have been the better pick if you're going receivers, right? But in general, if you're talking right tackle, right, which is what they went, Braden Smith went, 7 picks before Mike Mcglinchey, the Indianapolis Colts right tackle. He's a very good player. He might be a better player right now than Mcglinchey. It's close, you know, similar level players, but Braden Smith was drafted 37. Mike Mcglinchey was drafted 9. So maybe they could have gotten that tackle if they were willing to trade up already. Maybe they could have gotten their tackle in the second round and gone a different position in the first round. 2018 is a difficult draft because there weren't a lot of guys that really stood out like in 2017, right? Carlton Davis is another one. I think Carlton Davis went right after him, right?
Right after DJ. Carlton Davis was actually a little after DJ Chark. He was 63rd. How about that?
It was 63rd. Okay.
63rd.
Again, that's a guy, and that's a guy coming out of Auburn who would have been a perfect fit. He's long, rangy, athletic. He's what the Niners should have been looking for at corner. So that would be maybe I like both of those actually. Carlton Davis, DJ Chark. To me, those were definites over Dante Pettis. I think I would have probably said both of those at the time too. So I don't want to be this 100% hypocritical about this because honestly, I didn't know a lot about Dante Pettis or wasn't even thinking anything of Dante Pettis. Definitely wasn't thinking of Dante Pettis in the 40s before the Niners took him. So I was thinking about DJ Chark and Carlton Davis at that point. But yeah, I've been kind of rambling, but I can't really revisionist this and say like there's something specific the Niners should have done other than in the second round not taking Pettis. I think the first round pick, though Mcglinchey, you wish he was better for a 9th overall pick. It's one that you can kind of be like, fine. Because like the other guys around that time, right? Like the linebackers, they got Fred Warner in the 3rd round. So it's like,
well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the ironic thing is like, I don't like their first 2 picks at all. You could say they should have taken Jair Alexander first. Actually, they should have taken Fred Warner first. And the funny thing is, if they would redraft 2018, where would Warner go? Top 5?
Yeah, Warner's going in the top 10 for sure.
He's going in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah,
so they'd be lucky to get Warner with that pick that they used on Mcglinchey. So the fact that they mess up those first 2 and then knock the 3rd one out of the park so hard is the way it goes in life sometimes. So we're not just here to like say the Niners are terrible and dumb and they should have done all this stuff. It's kind of interesting to go back and play hindsight, but the 3rd round pick was one of their best 3rd round picks in franchise history. So salute to 2018.
I mean, other than Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Big Q, I think you can make argument for Fred Warner above every single other player in that draft. So
I can neither confirm nor deny, but he's an adult, so I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about, James Foster.
He pleads
TMZ not catching me, though, that's for sure.
Definitely not. Trey Niners says, let's grade Kyle and Lynch drafting since they've been a part of the Niners. I would give them a D+. Their late picks worked out, but the top picks suck. We're going to do it our own way today with the revisionist thing. And at the end, maybe we'll give them a grade, but that's a big project. I'll come back to that one. All right, let's go to the 2019 draft. This was Bosa, Deebo, Jalen Hurd, Mitch Wishnowsky. But we can focus on the top 3 picks.
Yeah, to me, all 4 can be focused on. So the first one, Bosa, to me, was a no-brainer. From where I stood in that draft, to me, it was Bosa, Quinnen Williams, or trade down for Brian Burns. Those were, to me, the only 3 options I looked at.
Option. Yeah, I like that option.
Yeah. And the trade down aspect, I mean, I think the Raiders were trying to trade down before they ultimately took Clelin Ferrell because they took him very late in that clock. So to me, it looked like they were going to try to trade down and get a couple more picks and then take Clelin Ferrell, especially because at that point before the draft, if you remember, the big rumor was that the Buffalo Bills were going to try to trade up to the top 5 to get one of the interior defensive linemen, whether it was Ed Oliver or Quinnen Williams, and Ed Oliver fell into their lap at 9, I think. So it kind of worked out perfectly for them. But so to me, Bosa, I understand the injuries, but like Quinnen Williams struggled a lot. His rookie year was terrific last year. Bosa was hurt last year. He was terrific as a rookie. So to me, it's kind of a wash, and I would stick with Nick Bosa. I still believe in Nick Bosa. I think he's special. I mean, when we did our top 10 ranking of the 49ers, I said he's the best player on the 49ers. So I think very highly of Nick Bosa. But the second round pick is where, I mean, I hate to do this because you know who my favorite player in the NFL is.
Deebo.
But if we're being totally objective about this, A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf are both better than Deebo. And if you want to say scheme fit, right, okay, maybe DK can't do as much of the stuff that Deebo does in the screen game and in the run game, but A.J. Brown can. One of the more underrated things about A.J. Brown is that he is a gadget-type player, too. He's very good at jet sweeps. He actually scored a touchdown off an end around, I think, as a rookie. He's really good after the catch. His after the catch ability is incredible. The difference is Deebo catches the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. A.J. Brown catches the ball 20 yards down the field and then gets 20 yards after the catch.
True.
They both get 20 yards after the catch. It's just Deebo's is a 20-yard gain. A.J. Brown's is a 40-yard gain. So that's probably one I look back and say, whew. Then third round.
And most people would have taken A.J. Brown over Deebo in that situation. That's the thing.
I think most people had A.J. Brown ranked. I don't know what the teams had. All the pre-draft prognosticators had A.J. Brown ranked higher. DK, a lot of the pre-draft prognosticators messed that up. Though I have a sneaking suspicion that DK Metcalf's neck had more to do with him falling in the draft than his 3-cone time.
Probably.
I think most people in the NFL are smarter than the people who just, look at his 3-cone time. He can't run routes. Like the people like Croc and Chris Sims who really know, they got it. They got it with DK Metcalf. They said he was the best receiver in the draft. They just didn't have access to his medicals and stuff. And I'm inclined to think that more people in the NFL subscribe to their line of thinking than they do the other people who really look at it a little more analytically. But to the third round, It's your guy, Grant. That should have been
Jalen Hurd. No, that's the guy I really liked was Terry McLaurin. I liked him a lot. I felt like he checked all the boxes, to use a football cliche. He had the height, weight, speed. I mean, he just killed the combine. And then and then at the Senior Bowl, he killed that too. He was good on the one-on-ones, which is what I really look for. Can you win? Can you beat man-to-man coverage? He did it at the Senior Bowl. He was super athletic, and it was obvious that he was playing with a quarterback and in a scheme that wasn't going to feature him much. He wasn't the first Ohio State quarterback that got wide receiver that got that treatment. Michael Thomas as well. So I liked him. The Niners went with the running back comfort.
Right. And the other thing, right, if you look at the Terry McLaurin thing, right, and I think that the reason they also didn't draft Terry McLaurin is because they had Dante Pettis, who you envision to play a similar role as an X receiver as what Terry McLaurin is in the NFL. And so the funny thing is, if they had drafted Terry McLaurin in the 3rd round and Pettis flopped in camp, they would have never had to trade for Emmanuel Sanders. So crazy how things work out, right? But to me, like Terry McLaurin is a top 15 receiver in the NFL. So like it's tough to say like, ooh, you shouldn't have missed out on that one. And that's where, like, with Kyle Shanahan, he's supposed to be the receiver guru, and he nailed Ayuk, but sometimes I just have a little bit of a lingering question mark, between Pettis and I love Deebo, but Deebo versus AJ Brown and Metcalf, and then Jalen Hurd versus McLaurin. Like, does he get super into one specific trait about a player, and he gets married to that idea of that player within his offense, and maybe he misses the other ones? I don't know, because drafting is a total crapshoot, and you can't really fault anybody for taking Deebo Samuel. He's a hell of a football player. But then the 4th round, Grant, come on.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Should have been the pick. Never should have traded down. Should have drafted Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's a hell of a nickel for the New Orleans Saints. He does a lot of the things K'Wan Williams does, but he's a little better in man coverage than K'Wan Williams. And he would have been exactly what the doctor ordered. And the other thing is the Mitch Wishnowsky pick, to me, for a punter in the 4th round is a disappointment. And it's not because he's a bad punter. He's a solid punter. But he's not Michael Dickinson, and he's not Johnny Hecker.
And he's the thing about punters, you can get solid punters on the street right now. Right now. Guys with NFL experience. You know what I mean? Free agents. You can get them. And maybe Wishnowski's like a fraction better than some guy who was a free agent in 2019. Maybe not, though.
So he's better than Pinion, right? He's better than Pinion.
He is better than Pinion.
Though Pinion was a better kickoff specialist. One of the things that really pisses me off with Mitch Wishnowsky is that Frankenstein leg, because he keeps it fully straight when he kicks the ball off. He doesn't bend his knee. Yeah. He cannot kick touchbacks. He takes years off my life. If the 49ers kick the ball off 4 times in a game, those kick returns, because those special teams plays are the ones that, as a fan, like, Grant, you would know this time, like from maybe 10, 15 years ago. Think back to your time in fandom when a team scored a special team touchdown against you. You're like, God,
are you kidding me? Yeah, are you kidding me? Did this just
You're giving that up? So that does tick me off. But honestly, Grant, the Mitch Wishnowsky pick, like, if you're drafting a punter in the 4th round, I don't even think he's the best punter from his class. The guy New England took in the 5th round out of Stanford is better than him, Bailey. Yes. So it's not that Wishnowski's a bad punter, right? He's a pretty good one. But he was drafted to be Michael Dickinson, who's one of the 3 best punters in the NFL. And Wishnowski's not one of the 3 best punters in the NFL.
And he's almost 30.
Wishnowsky is not even one of the 3 best punters in his own division.
No, Andy Lee's still better. Andy Lee is still better. Andy Lee. Anyway, used to be on the Niners, about 40 years old or whatever. Hell of a punter.
He was the best player on the Niners when I was little. He was the best player on the Niners when I was little.
All right, Rams reloaded and Stafford is ready to roll, says at Vish. Rams win the Super Bowl. I'm sending you a Stafford Rams jersey. And Grant, stop comparing Goff to a 2-time Pro Bowl. Stop comparing Goff, a 2-time Pro Bowl quarterback, to the softest quarterback in NFL history, Jittery G. Ooh, Jittery G. Is that what you call him in Ramsville? I think Goff's pretty soft too.
I'll take the Stafford jersey.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll take it.
There was one more, and then we'll move on. Questions coming fast on a Monday. Hold on. All right, here we go. T Money Sacktown says, "Hey, what's up, T Money? Vish, as a Niner fan, would Kyle Williams probably be the Niners fans' most hated player to wear red and gold, or do you have another person?" Ooh, I know who my most hated is.
Who?
What was dude's name? Lawrence Phillips. guy who got Steve Young, ended Steve Young's career. I'll never forgive him for that.
You know,
11-year-old
it's
Grant
funny.
was crushed when that happened. Aeneas Williams, when he knocked out Steve, I couldn't take that. That was hard.
Well, Lawrence Phillips, life knocked him out, so life got him back for Steve Young.
That's a good point.
But actually, you know, Kyle Williams, because he was such a nice guy, I guess I didn't hate him as much. Like 11-year-old me, funnily enough, was so upset when that happened. But the two guys that I really despised, my dad's least favorite was actually Sean Woods, but that's a different story. My least favorite were Shiloh Rashal and Kentuan Bomber. Man, I hated those guys as a kid, especially Shiloh Rashal. I hated Shiloh Rashal.
How about Quam Harris?
Yeah, I didn't like him very much too.
Let me come back to Kyle Williams real quick. The thing with him, I was there at the game. It was a wet, kind of rainy-ish day, and ball security was an issue. Ahmad Bradshaw fumbled.
I know.
I don't think it counted. But
yes, that ticked me off more than the Kyle Williams, to be honest.
There was I think there was a reverse. The Niners fumbled. And then I think it was the third quarter, definitely the second half, Kyle Williams dove for a punt. And I think he caught it. But at that point, I feel like he revealed that the stage was too big for him and he was going to do erratic stuff. He was a backup. Ted Ginn Jr. was the returner all year. He was hurt. So if I were the coach and I saw my backup punt returner diving for punts in the rain in the second half of the NFC Championship game, I would bench him and put River Craycraft in to just let it bounce or fair catch it. I would have no confidence in that young man on that stage. So I feel like a more attuned head coach would have not let Kyle Shanahan do it once, let alone twice.
Kyle Williams.
Oh, sorry. All right. Anyway,
no, but I agree with that. But where it really ticks me off too is because Brad Seeley was the highest paid special teams coach in the NFL.
That's true. That's absolutely true. All right, let's revise. Okay, so the Niners they took Bosa, they took Deebo, they took Jalen Hurd. They got nothing from Jalen Hurd. Still went to the Super Bowl, and they were up 10 points with 7 minutes left, and you know the rest. What would you do differently to give the 49ers that Super Bowl victory?
And throw the ball to George Kittle on 3rd and 5.
So you would make Jimmy Garoppolo better?
Yes. Actually, forget if I was making Jimmy Garoppolo better, then forget Kittle on 3rd and 5. The Niners dropped 30-10 in that football game.
Yes, pretty much. Yes. So, okay, aside from making Jimmy Garoppolo less bad, is there anything else you would do?
Because
that's a tough one. That's a tall order.
Drop Emmanuel Mosley back. Because the way they played, I mean, it's cover 3, right? By the rules of cover 3, Emmanuel Mosley played it right. But Robert Saleh has talked about it, and I've heard about it a little bit, that the Niners were actually prepared for that exact concept, WASP. And they'd planned. If you watch the way Jimmy Ward plays it as the free safety, he just doesn't let Hill get inside of him because he knows he has Mosley's. He's supposed to have Mosley's help outside. And I don't want to put it on Mosley. He's a good player. He had a good season for the 49ers in 19 and all of that, but I'd have him drop into that zone. And when that Patrick Mahomes' bomb that was like in the air for 20 minutes, and because he threw it so far off his back foot, Mosley can be right there to fair catch it and end the football game.
I love Robert Saleh, and even if he were watching this right now, which he might be, I would say I would go. And you know more about football than I do, Robert. You know more about coverages than I do, Robert. But I would say I would go with
split safety.
I would play split safety on the third down, and I think Todd Bowles pretty much showed that was the way to go with the Chiefs. I mean, I understand playing single high against a team that wants to dink and dunk against you, but they want to go down the field. I think that one there, really more split safety throughout the game. And then
I will say this, though. The Robert Saleh we saw in 2020, because Robert Saleh in 2019 was much improved.
Different.
Robert Saleh in 2020 was even better than that, and the amount of things he did in split safety coverage. It didn't matter about Jimmy Garoppolo. With 2020 Robert Saleh, I don't think the 49ers lose that football game. I think he just is a bit more creative. He just does a bit more things from split safety because they were still married to being a Seattle scheme defense in 19.
They were.
And their wrinkle was occasionally being now instead of being split safety occasionally, they were split safety like maybe 40% of the time, and they were single high 60%. I don't think he would lose that football game. I don't.
I would also say that I would probably call a couple more runs on second down in the fourth quarter, but that's a couple of plays. And maybe I would increase Nick Bosa's arm length from 33 to Aldon Smith 35, because if it was Aldon Smith 35, he would have 5 sacks in that football game instead of 15 pressures. That's true. David Velez says Kyle Williams hadn't returned a punt since high school, and you put him out there in terrible conditions. God, I miss Ted Ginn Jr. Yeah, the thing with Ted Ginn, he ran the wrong route against the Saints. I wrote an article on this, revising history. He ran the wrong route, ran into Michael Crabtree, and got hurt. He like these speed guys are like Ferraris. They really can't function unless they're 100%. And he just kind of ran into Crabtree, didn't play the next week. That was it. If he had just run the right route.
Wait, really? I thought he was hurt.
He was hurt, but I mean he was hurt because he ran into Crabtree. Like it was on him. Go back and watch the play. He just runs a route straight in. I think it was like a rub route or something, and he just didn't do it well and got hurt. Yeah.
That 2011 playoffs from Crabtree was brutal. Jabari Greer and Corey Webster had their ways with him.
Yeah, he was really bad. A lot of people put that on Alex Smith going 1 for 13 on third down, but I think there was one catch by a wide receiver in that game. It was Crabtree for about 7 yards. That's why they drafted A.J. Jenkins.
And they signed Randy Moss and Mario Manningham. And then it turned out they actually had a number 1 receiver in Crabtree, and then he blows out his Achilles right after the season. Unlucky.
Yeah. He was in much better shape in 2012 than he was in 2011, Crabtree.
He was coming off the broken foot, though, so he didn't train all offseason. And then
That's true. That's true. In 2012, he was in amazing shape. Him and Colin Kaepernick were in amazing shape that year. John says, guys, explain your take on the Wasp play versus KC and the hold on Bosa. Was it or was it not? Holds called. No holds called, Grant, since you're from a neutral perspective. What do you think?
I thought it was a hold, but I don't think that I thought it was a hold, right? I thought it was a hold when I watched the play live. But even with the hold, the Niners still made a mistake that allowed that to be a 50-yard completion or 45-yard or 35 or whatever the amount of yards was.
Do you think that the Chiefs would have got that call, that holding call, had they been on offense? That the ref subconsciously wanted to elevate Patrick Mahomes? No, it's just a bad call.
Because I do think that Chris Jones got held inside a decent amount in that football game as well.
Okay, that's a fair thing to say. All right, let's keep going. So the Niners lost that Super Bowl. Had they done just a few things that Vish and I suggested, they'd have 7 rings by now, but they don't. Hey, it's okay.
Just next time you're in the Super Bowl, Kyle Shanahan, consult Mondays with Vish 2028. If you're in the Super Bowl in 2026, consult us in 2028. We'll have the right answers. Not in 2026. Just get a time machine and consult the 2028 version of us.
That's right. And if you want my number, just hit up Robert Saleh. I'm sure he'll give it to you. All right. Revising history. After they lose the Super Bowl, they have some big decisions to make. 2 big ones. First, which first-round pick to keep? They decide to keep Eric Armstead. They trade DeForest Buckner. Would you do this differently in hindsight?
I mean, we've only seen it play out for a year. And that 1 year Nick Bosa was hurt. And I personally would not do this differently. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of paying a defensive player $20+ million unless his name is Aaron Donald. I don't think DeForest Buckner is a $20 million defensive player. I didn't think after the 2019 football season, DeForest Buckner was one of the 3 best defensive tackles in the NFL. I thought Aaron Donald was better than him. I thought Chris Jones was definitely better than him. And then there were a couple other guys right around that conversation, like Akeem Hicks and a few other guys like that. So I personally was very comfortable with what the Niners did. Now, the intangible aspect with Buckner, I think, is why people are really clamoring for him, right? Consummate professional, always there to play 16 games, always says the right things, all those things. But personally, if you're looking at this just from a financial perspective and just the player perspective, I personally was very okay with how they dealt with the Buckner situation. Now, I wasn't exactly for the don't sign Buckner to sign Armstead. I was kind of don't sign Buckner, don't sign Armstead.
That's an interesting take. That's a fair take.
Because I thought,
and what I want to say real quick about Buckner, I'm with you on not spending $20+ million on a defensive player. I do think when you're in this position that the Niners have put themselves in now, where you have a cheap quarterback, you can do things like that. Like the Chiefs pay a ton of money for Frank Clark when he's not worth what they pay him. But
even then, Grant, if I'm going to pay that $20 million for a defensive player, if his name is not Aaron Donald, it's going to be a cornerback or it's going to be an edge rusher. It's not going to be a 5 technique or a 3 technique.
Okay. I'm just looking real quick. What is Chris Jones paid? Curious. Chris Jones is making, dang, his cap number this year is only 8, but next year is 29. So, yeah, I guess it seems to me like what maybe happened is you have to have players who are willing to work with you a little bit. And I think DeForest Buckner wanted his money now. And I think the Niners felt he was hard to work with. Like, I don't think he would have been renegotiating and lowering his cap number and pushing things back. Like, he wanted his money right now.
And he deserved his money now. He had the resume to be the guy that asked for his money now. But going back, I wanted to elaborate on the point of signing. On the point of
his cap percentage next year.
They'll restructure him. They'll restructure him by next year. That's not going to be 29. But going back, the reason I didn't want to sign both is because I felt like the Niners defense and overtime defenses get worse, especially if you do it with the same personnel, right? The best version of the Legion of Boom defense was 2013. Every single iteration up to 2016, 2017 was always a worse defense. Even though it was an elite defense, it was never the defense that could carry them to the Super Bowl like it was in 2013. And because of that, I thought that maybe the Niners needed to have an entire philosophical change. Given Dee Ford's injury risks and given all of that, I thought with the 13th overall pick, I guess, like I wanted it to be CeeDee Lamb or Javon Kinlaw. So I was very happy with Javon Kinlaw. Still disappointed that it wasn't CeeDee Lamb, but now that we have Ayuk, like, or the Niners have Ayuk, not we, excuse me, that's the second time I've done that. But now that the Niners have Ayuk, I'm ecstatic. Like, who cares about CeeDee Lamb? But at the time, I was CeeDee Lamb 1, then Kinlaw. So I'm okay with that entire situation. I'm okay with them having Kinlaw. But for me, if you look at it, to me, I thought the Chiefs kind of exposed the fact that you can't be just a pass rush zone defense behind it. You had to be able to play some type of man coverage. And I looked at the 49ers, and everybody knows how much I love the safeties. I love their safeties. I have not loved their corners in years. I've not loved their corners since their starting corners were Terrell Brown and Carlos Rogers, which I still think is probably the best 49ers starting cornerback tandem in the last 10 years. Tremaine Brock, Parrish Cox, they were pretty good for a little while. And, Sherman Mosley, Sherman Witherspoon were probably third. But I thought that maybe the Niners could change how they're allocating their resources. I thought it was a good moment. Because we talked about this earlier in the year. One of the first shows we did, we talked about how running it back was a mistake. Yes. And I don't want to be, when I'm doing this revisionist history, I don't want to be a hypocrite. And the reason I wasn't for signing both of those players is because I thought, okay, you just did it a certain way. Mm-hmm. It didn't work. You can blame the quarterback. You can blame the referees. You can blame this. You can blame that. It didn't work.
Lost by 11.
Right. So why not make a subtle philosophical change? And I thought I'm a big fan of how the New England Patriots have built their dynasty and the way they come up with different teams. Like if you look at the way the team was in 2001 when they won compared to the 2018 team they won, 17 years, same coach, same quarterback, two totally different rosters in terms of financial allocation and everything. And I thought the most New England Patriots thing to do was let Eric Armstead walk, or franchise and trade Eric Armstead and trade DeForest Buckner the way they did. So from that standpoint, and then rebuild this defense being more secondary forward because you have Fred Warner, you still have Nick Bosa, two elite players in the front seven. You have Tart Ward. I thought that might have been the way to go at the time. And I don't
have so much depth in the interior. I mean, they really do have good players in the interior.
DJ Jones is a hell of a football player.
Yep. So is Contavious Street. That was not a super high pick, but not a low pick. They have Kevin Givens, who's good. They have a bunch of guys.
So, and they have Chris Kasarik, who they pay so much money for. I felt like if you're paying this much money, The point isn't for him to make Nick Bosa Nick Bosa. The point is for him to make DJ Jones an elite level player. So for me, that's where I was, Grant. But honestly, looking back, I don't think I would change this situation. I love DeForest Buckner. I think he's a great player. I cannot get past that $20 million price mark for a interior defensive lineman unless his name's Aaron Donald.
See, here's the thing, though. I don't want to belabor the point here, but the main difference between these two is that Buckner got his money up front, Armstead pushed it back and backloaded it because he's going to be his cap number is going to be over 23. I think 3 years in a row, but not till 2023. Hold on, let me just get it real quick. Hold on, because I want to get this right, and I know the cap's going up. I know, but his cap
next year, Eric Armstead is 20 million. 20 million. Eric Armstead is next year. Yeah.
So that's it.
So if you want to,
Buckner's coming down a little bit.
If you want to make that point to me that, hey, they shouldn't have paid Armstead, I'd have that conversation 100% with you. But yes. I'm not 100% for the people who want to just go back and say, oh, they should have paid Buckner, because I think Buckner's contract would have been a big problem for this football team. And I don't think he could have ever lived up, because at the end of the day, interior defensive linemen can only dominate the game so much. The reason you pay quarterbacks so much money is because they are putting an impact on the game every single play. And the only interior defensive lineman that, to me, impacts every single play of every single football game is Aaron Donald, because he might be the best interior defensive lineman we've ever seen. And DeForest Buckner, hell of a football player, all-pro football player, terrific person, terrific leader, everything, isn't that guy.
Okay. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
Not that guy, yeah.
Not that guy. T-Money Sacktown says, why do people claim Cap had no touch in his throws? He had so many nice throws in the end zone. Anquan Bolden and Crabtree, my favorite receiver behind Rice.
Agreed. Didn't we talk about this last week?
Yeah.
We said that Kaepernick was accurate and had touch. It was just that he had a slow release. So it wasn't like he wasn't consistent, but he was accurate. He had a ton of touch. He dropped in the bucket to Vernon Davis in the 2012 divisional game.
He certainly did. All right. Let's keep going. We got so much more history to revise. More recent history. Sticking with 2020. So they made the decision with Armstead and Buckner. Then they made a crucial quarterback decision. They saw what Jimmy did in the fourth quarter. Organizationally, it felt like they pinned it on him. But then there was another wing that it seemed of the organization or the fandom that said, give him another year. It'll be his second full year starting, and you saw what happened to Matt Ryan in his second. This guy is young. It was his he's going to be in the MVP conversation. The best is yet to come. That was sort of, and the backdrop was Tom Brady was available. So, what do you think? Did they do it right?
No, it's easy to say it now, but no, they didn't do it right. Yeah. Now, am I saying the 49ers of 2020 with all those injuries would have won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady? No, probably not. But are they a better football team with Tom Brady than they are with Jimmy Garoppolo? Yes, because Tom Brady's a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. Mobility, right? People talk about mobility. Tom Brady is more mobile within the pocket at 43 than Jimmy Garoppolo is at 30.
True.
This is important. And I think that's one of the things with Brady that's so underrated, because mobility goes beyond just running and scrambling. Brady is one of the best pocket manipulators in the history of the NFL. He has some of the quickest feet within the pocket in the history of the NFL.
True.
Then you go to throwing. Tom Brady's a better thrower at 43 than Jimmy Garoppolo's.
True.
Stronger arm, better deep ball, more accurate.
True.
So he's better, right? So, like, I think that's an easy one, right? That's an easy one. And one of the things I told you on the phone, and I've told you this a few times, is that one of the God's saving grace for me before I started doing this, and I was lucky enough to get this opportunity with you, was that we did it after week one. Because I was just thinking to myself, man, if we did this in 2019 or the 2020 offseason, where this Brady thing was going on, and I had said at the time, which I did feel that, I loved Jimmy. Like, I love Jimmy. I'm a fan of the 49ers, so I like Jimmy. I love Jimmy, all of that. But if you asked me to give my objective opinion, I would have said they got to sign Tom Brady. Nobody would have liked me. And I think a few people like me now, and I'm thankful for that. But, man, nobody would have liked me if I did this then. So I'm thankful for that. And Brady's the obvious one, but Grant, I actually want to go even further, right? Because we're doing the QB position.
Mm-hmm.
should have upgraded the backup quarterback spot.
Ooh, okay.
Should have drafted a quarterback in 2020 in the 2020 draft, or should have drafted a quarterback in the 2019 draft.
Like CJ Beathard didn't need to be on the 2020 team.
Look, CJ Beathard didn't need to be on either of those teams. I think we'd seen enough where there was no development happening with CJ Beathard. He was no longer the developmental prospect. They needed to bring in another developmental prospect. Correct. And Nick Mullins looked okay in 2018, but he was also playing with house money in 2018. He wasn't playing for a roster that needed wins like he was in 2020, and he fell apart a little bit in that situation.
Brought in some more.
So,
absolutely.
And the issue that the Niners had in 2020 was everybody's like, bench Nick Mullins. Bench Nick Mullins for who? They didn't want to bench him for CJ Beathard.
Yes, for good reason.
And that's where I think that they kept telling themselves that we have one of the best quarterback rooms in the NFL. No, you don't. No, you don't. A good quarterback room has a backup like a Jacoby Brissett, a backup like a Case Keenum.
Or Rosen. In retrospect, I like the whole Rosen thing that they're doing now. And they could have had him way earlier. I mean, he was available. And I like that they got him.
You know what, though? Even if you have Rosen, to me, there's no excuse not to draft a quarterback in rounds 4 through 6 next year, too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, too. I'm cool with the Niners keeping Rosen, Lance, getting rid of the rest, including Sudfeld. Not exactly sure what Sudfeld.
I'm cool with
a lot of people like Sudfeld. I just don't. I mean, I don't get it. He's throwing like 40 passes.
Actually, you know what? To be fair, Philly, Sudfeld was their CJ Beathard. They kept him on that roster with Foles and Wentz for like 3 years.
That's what I'm saying. Why? He's gonna be in the league for like a nice little time, a nice little chunk, and I just don't get it. But I guess we'll find out. I don't know. I mean, did he do anything in that little cameo appearance last year? They were like, "Oh, boom, that's it right there. That's the reason." It's like, I don't know. Like, is he better than CJ? I guess.
Maybe because like the cameo experience, like Jalen Hurts wasn't playing good in that football game either, and they were going up against a really good defense. So like, I guess you can excuse him for that, but at the same time, like, there's nothing about him physically that you saw, and you're like, yes, that's why he's been on this roster for 5 years, and that's why the Niners are about to fork over some amount of guaranteed money to bring him in.
Yeah. Okay. Trey Niner says Kyle wanted Cousins, and I don't think we would have went to the Super Bowl with Cousins, so Jimmy was the better option at the time. Some people feel Cousins would have won that game. Yeah. That Cousins would have hit that throw to Emmanuel Sanders. I'm just saying. The thing about Cousins is that
I may or may not be one of those people. Forget the throw to Emmanuel Sanders. The thing about Cousins that people don't understand is, does Cousins go kind of crazy if the play in front of him isn't working? Is he awful at executing off schedule? Yes. But Cousins is one of the best quarterback executors in the NFL when it comes to making right decisions from the pocket and executing his offense, especially a play action based offense, and standing in the pocket with toughness and making the throw that's needed, right? If there's a 20-yard throw available, he makes the 20-yard throw, doesn't throw the 5-yard throw. So all of those things, Cousins is very good at all those things. That's why he has like a 99 career quarterback rating with 6 different offensive coordinators and 2 different football teams. And
so, I mean, Jimmy should be so lucky to have a career like that. Honestly, the thing with Cousins is he's just too expensive.
Yes, and he's just the weirdest dude in the history.
I think you need someone to give you something off schedule, unless his name is Peyton or Tom. Otherwise, Joe Montana was very good off schedule. So I think you can't.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. You need your quarterback to be able to make a play by himself. But if you look at the Super Bowl by itself and just the Super Bowl as its own entity, all the Niners needed was somebody to execute perfectly. And that's where you could make the argument for Cousins, because he doesn't make the execution errors that Garoppolo does.
Jank Master says, "Hey, Vish and Grant, love the show." We love you, Jank Master. Thank you. Money aside, do you think a dual quarterback 50-50 split set up in SF could work? Has it ever worked professionally? It's funny. Someone asked me this earlier today, and I was saying that I'm not against the idea on certain teams that aren't investing in the quarterback position at all. Like, for example, New Orleans, New England. Both of those teams have about 2 quarterbacks who are kind of neck and neck, and neither one's highly paid. Not really invested in either one. If you want to get creative and split that up and do a mad scientist experiment, by all means. But you do not do this when you trade it up to number 3 for a franchise quarterback. And you don't do it if one of your quarterback is making $30 million. No, absolutely not. You're too invested. But I think certain teams could experiment with it. Certain teams.
So I agree with you on who can experiment with it 100%. I don't believe in this at all.
Fair.
I'm a believer in the old adage. If
Fair.
you have two quarterbacks, you have none.
You got none. I think it's a creative way to go cheap at the position, because if you are going cheap, you either have a Hall of Famer on rookie deal or some limited vet. So if you have limited vets, maybe you want two and like combine them like Power Rangers.
Right. But then at the end of the day, right, every game is going to come down to 3rd and 15 or 3rd and 10, true drop back situation. Can your quarterback make the throw? And that's when
he's
you
probably
can't
a
go
good starter in the
tricky.
league. Exactly. If he can
and if he's a good starter in the league, you're not looking to go 50-50 with somebody else, or he makes too much money for you to even attempt it.
Good point. All right, let's stay with 2020. So we handled the trade, we handled free agency. Now let's get to the draft. The Niners in 2020 traded down one spot with the Bucks. Bucks got Tristan Wirfs, who looks excellent. The Niners got Javon Kinlaw, who shows promise. And with that pick that they traded down with, they used it to move up, get Brandon Ayuk. Is there anything you would do differently in this scenario?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
No. I really like Javon Kinlaw. I liked him before the draft, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite here because I didn't love Tristan Wirfs before that draft. So,
fair. Well, let me try to present some alternative, because I don't want to make you the bad guy here. Let me present it. Instead of doing what they did, and they ended up getting a baller in Brandon Ayuk and maybe another one in Kinlaw, they could have stayed there at 13, taken Kinlaw. If they wanted him, they could have taken Kinlaw. Or just Wirfs. I think Wirfs is really special. And then instead of trading up for Ayuk, they could have taken T. Higgins, whomever.
So if they take Wirfs, right, the entire draft changes because they would have had to stay at 13 and get Wirfs, but then they don't need that extra pick, which was shipped off to get Trent Williams, and they have a couple more picks in the draft. And then when they do trade up for Ayuk, right, they still have a little more to work with. I don't know. It's a complicated situation. I like what they did personally. I think Trent Williams is still playing at a level that Tristan Wirfs, I'm not sure he can reach. Personally, that's how I feel about it. He's also a right tackle, left tackle. There are a couple differences. In terms of the other thing with the Niners also, if you look at how they scout offensive linemen, it's very, very important that you can fit in their run game. And that was something with Wirfs in space that was a little bit of a concern when he was coming out. And Tampa Bay runs a lot of duo, a lot of power, man-on-man action with their run game. So
that's true. Straight ahead.
We won't ever get to see that.
Straight ahead, yeah.
Yeah. And Trent Williams functions in space maybe as well as any offensive lineman in the history of the NFL. So that's one thing. In terms of the receiver, honestly, if you asked me this question before I saw Brandon Ayuk play or before people were saying stuff about Ayuk, I did have a little bit of a reservation about the fact that they gave up 3 picks to get Brandon Ayuk. That one was a little bit questionable. Now, looking how good Brandon Ayuk is, it's like whatever. 3 picks at Brandon Ayuk is special. But T. Higgins is pretty good. I liked Michael Pittman personally a lot. Chase Claypool had a very, very good rookie season. All those guys, especially Claypool and Higgins, though I thought they were worse than Ayuk as rookies. Were they 3 picks worse than Ayuk? You could argue no. You could argue Claypool plus 3 players is as good as Brandon Ayuk, maybe better. I don't know. But overall, judging, I mean, it's only been 1 year. So I think we'll have a better idea of this in 2023 or 2022 next year. But judging overall, I wouldn't really change what they did in this draft. I think I'm pretty okay with it.
That's fair. BMF Ranger says, I know why 49er fans love Jimmy. 22-8, Nick 5-10, CJ 1-9, Brian 0-6, Brian 4-9. Yeah, Blaine.
Yeah, I mean that's reason though.
Yeah.
Look at the names of the guys right to him. Just think. Look at these names.
Yeah. Look at them. Look at them right now. Okay, they're gone. T Money Sacktown says, G to the rant. Shoot, dude, what do you know about the Power Rangers? Who's your favorite Ranger? Give me his or her name. Man, okay, so you had the Red Ranger was named Jason. The Black Ranger was named Zach. I don't know, man. It's been a long time. But I know that it started off, there was a Green Ranger. He was kind of like he was on his own, and they'd have to like call him up when things got real, and he'd be like doing his own thing. And then he changed to the White Ranger, and I thought that was a big deal, a big moment when but then we're all talking early '90s stuff. Here's before your time, man. Power Rangers was corny. It was super corny.
Yeah, I know nothing about Power Rangers besides
So
the fact that
popular,
I had a few Power Rangers action figures.
Oh, kids love that, man. It was
they were pretty sweet.
Yeah, pretty sweet. All right, so now let's go to 2021. So Revenge Tour really falls apart. They go 6-10. You guys know, I mean, it happened we're talking this year. And the 49ers decide not to trade for Matthew Stafford, not to trade for Carson Wentz, not to trade for Deshaun Watson, probably the right call. Instead, they trade up to number 3. Very intriguing young man from North Dakota State. Anything you would have done differently here?
I mean, yeah. First things first, I would have traded for Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
That I haven't changed in that line of thinking. I believe that much in Matthew Stafford, maybe to a fault, but I think he's that good. Honestly, I question. I looked at all the quarterbacks in the draft, and to me, outside of Trevor Lawrence, from a talent perspective, I still think Matthew Stafford at 32 is more gifted than all of them, where if you change a situation, the ceiling becomes higher. The thing about his throwing is his throwing is not something that puts him in the conversation with the best in the NFL. We're talking the best in NFL history in terms of his ability to manipulate his arm with arm angles, his arm strength, his ability to throw off platform, his ability to move around and throw. Just his pure arm ability is like with the Brett Favres and the Elways and the Mahomes and the Josh Allens and the Rodgers, like the Marino. Those are the only guys really in that type of throwing conversation. And 5 of those guys look like future Hall of Famers. And then the 6th guy is Matthew Stafford. So I didn't change my line of thinking. To me, that was still the best option. He was cheaper. He was the veteran quarterback that a veteran roster needed. And he's what Kyle Shanahan needed. Now, going into the draft, I prefer Justin Fields to Trey Lance. I mean, am I happy the 49ers got Trey Lance? 100%. Do I like Trey Lance more than Justin Fields now? You betcha. I don't even like Justin Fields anymore. He's on the Bears. But I still, because I watched a lot of both of them before the draft, and now, do I know anything about quarterback evaluation? I would say, frankly, no. But what I valued in terms of before the draft, to me, Fields looked better. Now, that could be totally wrong, but at that point, not to be a hypocrite about it, I thought Fields looked better. But I'm happy with Lance, and yeah. But the bottom line to me is that if we were doing whatever in the 2021 quarterback situation and all of that, when Stafford became available, that's what I would have done. I wouldn't have gone the draft route because I felt like there are holes in this roster that they were able to fill. But just imagine if the 49ers were able to draft a very, very good player at pick 12, maybe a pass rusher, maybe a Jalen Phillips at pick 12. So
I hear where you're coming from, Vish. I think I'm going to disagree here only because I've been pushing for it for years. The quarterback on a rookie deal. I'm enticed. I know it's kind of like, you could get into trouble chasing it because it doesn't. I mean, who knows? Trey Lance could be a bust. We don't know. He hasn't practiced with pads on yet. But I just like the idea of having a guy on a rookie deal. And I have talked myself into Trey Lance. I really do think he's quite good. And I think what it is it's like you have to, I'm reorienting my quarterback thinking. It used to be like, the extracurricular stuff was nice, but what do you do in the pocket? Now it's almost like, well, the pocket stuff is nice, but can you do anything else? Because that pocket really isn't going to last very long. And if you can't, then we're capped. So I think it was the right pick, and how they went about doing it, spending all that to move up to number 3 and not 2 or 1 is always going to be very interesting. But I really like Trey Lance. And I didn't at first, but he's grown on me tremendously.
And I also like Trey Lance, right? He's now my favorite quarterback in the NFL. But of course, the other reason Stafford was really, really on my mind too is because that cap hit was right in the sweet spot. It was right at 11% and right under 11%. That is true. Next 2 years. That's the sweet spot if you're going to pay a veteran quarterback and you think you're going to have a Super Bowl caliber roster. So
it's that upper limit. Yes. It's well within the range of doable. Yes.
Right. So that's where, he's the one that got away from me. I've been banging. It's hard because I don't think people realize how long I had been just like on that Stafford train. I'd been on it since Someone said Vish talks about
I
Stafford
saw
like
that's
Kyle
hilarious.
talks about Cousins. Yeah, because Kyle was on Cousins since the beginning of 2017, and then it didn't happen in 2018. I was on Stafford since before the beginning of the 2019 football season. I was like, man, whatever happens with Jimmy, Matthew Stafford. And then like bunch of variables that you couldn't even predict go right? Like he becomes available, he wants out, the Niners are interested, and then the Rams get Matthew Stafford. Ooh.
Very, very dramatic. Fair enough. I'm setting you up to be the villain today. Just everyone, these are my topics. Vish is just being consistent. Vish is a good guy.
I mean, I can't sit here and change my mind about something that I've talked about for the last 6 months and tell you that they made the right decision just because I'm a fan. Now, I could be proven wrong, and I'm going to be happy if I'm wrong because you know what? I'm a Trey Lance fan now more than I'm a fan of Matthew Stafford, more than I'm a fan of Justin Fields. But at that time, based on whatever little I did a decent amount of research. Now, whether it was informed research, that's up to your discretion. I certainly don't think it's the most informed, but I thought that Stafford and Justin Fields were maybe the better moves at the time. But now,
that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Ron says, do not let Kyle have final say on draft picks. He is not the great talent evaluator we all thought. Adam Peters picked Trey, not Kyle. Adam Peters, did you know that Adam Peters picked all the good players the Niners have drafted the last? It's remarkable.
Yeah.
All of them.
Whenever East Bay Chris tweets it out, I think it's hilarious, but I think it's so true. And I actually don't understand like how people get specific credit, because the thing about being a GM is that there's so much more to it than just drafting players, you know? You have to manage an entire football team.
Yes, there is. I mean, just getting the practice schedule right can be a tricky proposition.
3 weeks of research, Grant.
49ers Ultimate report says, Grant, you made me into Jimmy G. I don't know what that means, but I don't think I did. And if I did, I'm sorry. Although Jimmy G is very rich.
T-Money Sacktown. He's coming in.
Also very rich. Any shows of yours, Grant, coming up where you just talk running backs? Tommy Green, White, Jason Red, Trini Yellow, Kimberly Pink. Okay. So Tommy was green. Jason was red. Kimberly was pink, of course. Zach was black. Billy was blue. Billy was such a dork, too. And I like because you wanted to be the Blue Ranger because everyone's favorite color is blue, but he was such a dork. Zach was cool. I feel like that actor was in another show on Nickelodeon. That show where they were like Nickelodeon had like a. Did you watch Nickelodeon? Nickelodeon had like
I watched Drake and Josh.
No, it had like a kid's version of Star Trek in like the early 90s that Zach was on too. I forget what it was called. Land of the Lost? No, I forget. I don't know. Cody says, invest in the future, in my opinion. If Trey is as smart as everyone says, with his talent, he is for sure better than Jimmy. Sink or swim for Kyle as a head coach. Well, yeah, I mean, yes. That's what we said earlier. He's the future. If he's ready, it's his time.
Yeah. But so one more thing just on the Stafford thing. Obviously, I don't want to turn this into a Stafford conversation, but in regards to the future thing, part of the reason I thought a veteran quarterback was necessary is because I think that the roster that Trey Lance is going to be winning with the next few years is not going to be this current roster. Mm-hmm. They're going to experience a bunch of turnover, and they're going to have to rebuild it a specific way with Trey Lance. So that's where I thought the veteran quarterback was the better way to go, even though the quarterback on the rookie deal and everything is enticing, just because this is a last hurrah. We talked about this last time. This current iteration of the 49ers, whoever your favorite players are, this is the last time this is that group of players. True.
And you could say that, like, look, the Stafford trade made more sense to the Rams because they didn't have the ammunition to go get Trey Lance if they wanted him. I mean, did they? They'd already spent picks to get Jalen. I don't think they could have made that move.
They made the opposite decision. They looked at their veteran team and they said, "There's no point getting a rookie quarterback and going that route.
Right.
Let's just try to win now with the veteran. We'll see."
Okay. Final topic. The 2021 draft. Would you have traded up to 3 or would you have stayed at 12? Given the fact that if you stay at 12, you can still get a quarterback. You can get a different position. You can get a quarterback and have a competition. You can get a pass rusher. What would you do?
I mean, we talked about this a little bit before.
Earlier. Yeah.
And honestly, given how everything went and all of that, I think that, if you asked me this 5 minutes ago, I might have given you a different answer, but I think I would have traded up to 3. I think, it's easy to say now, looking back. Yeah. Mac Jones fell to 15. Justin Fields fell to 11 and all of that. I don't know if I would have traded up to 3 a month before the draft.
Yeah.
That to me was maybe a little questionable, but I have no problems with them going up to 3 and getting their guy, and that's Trey Lance. And so, honestly, it doesn't bother me too much. The month before the draft, the kind of cloudy reporting, the way they went about the entire situation, there's a lot about it I would change. I think they handled it in somewhat of a poor way, and then coming out and saying that all the reputable media members were just making things up and all of that. I have a little bit of questions about that entire thing. But in terms of going up to 3 and getting the quarterback they like, don't really have a problem with it, especially if they feel that good about Trey Lance, Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch. At the end of the day, I don't have too much of a problem with. I had a problem maybe with more the way the entire situation was handled a month before the draft. Not really sure who it is. Opportunity to scout a couple of guys. We like 2 of them. We like 5 of them. We like this. We like that. We do this. We do that. And then doing all of that, I didn't particularly prefer that. But in terms of trading up and getting the guy, don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, and when they did it, I was like, man, like he might be worth the number 3 pick, but there's no way he's going to be worth 3 first-round picks. It's just too much. But the more I watch him and the more I think about it, it's like, man, if he is a good quarterback, an excellent quarterback, and you have him on a rookie deal, then he is worth those picks. I mean, that's what Kyle said. I mean, if Jalen Ramsey is worth the picks, if Jamal Adams is worth the picks, then a good young quarterback on a rookie deal is certainly worth the pick. So it's a gamble, but the more I've seen him, the more I feel like, man, it was the right gamble.
The bigger difference, though, is that Adams and Ramsey are proven all pro players that you're trading for. That's the big.
If Trey Lance were a proven young player, you wouldn't get him
100%, right? Like if they traded all of this for Deshaun Watson before the ugly situation, we'd all be like, wow, hell of a trade. You got Deshaun Watson for that. So I agree with that. And the other thing is that the thing about this draft, and the thing we have to say realistically to ourselves, and I felt like you and I were actually on the train of saying this quite a bit, maybe too much before the draft. Only one of the 2 of these guys are going to succeed. That's just the reality of the situation. So, Fields before the draft, Fields and Lance might be like this, and Jones and Lance might be like that, and something like that, where they're all really close together. But that margin of if Lance, in your opinion, is better than those 2 guys, even if that margin is minimal, that margin is going to make a difference over the long run, because the avenue of success is small for most of these guys. And this draft, in terms of statistics, becomes even more of a difficult draft for the other 4 guys, because there's one guy that feels like statistically like he can't fail in Trevor Lawrence. Like these guys usually don't, like the Elways, the Lucks, the guys that are hyped like this just don't typically fail. So
well, the interesting thing though is like before the draft, we were talking about this a lot, that everyone likes all these quarterbacks. The reality is only a couple of them probably are going to work out, but it's impossible to predict before the draft because you don't know where they're going to end up. And now, like if Trey Lance ended up on the Bears and Justin Fields ended up on the Niners, you look
at them differently, right?
Exactly. So Trey Lance, the fact that he's here gives him the best chance possible. You would think. 100%,
100%. Yeah. But even then, that margin, if you evaluate them as individual players within your system, I still think that it means a lot. So,
yeah. 49ers Ultimate Report says, you and Vish made me support and like Jimmy G. Damn. Sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. That's, you should probably go to a doctor for that. You should get that checked. Brian says, Stafford is 33 years old with an injury history as well, and not a lot of years left. Plus, the Niners are 60-40 run-pass offense. I mean, look, he's just saying you know what you got in Stafford. He's not too expensive. That's a fair point. It's you still don't really know what you got with Trey Lance, which is why Jimmy Garoppolo
5 more years.
I'm 33.
5 more years.
What are you trying to say, Brian?
And then the 60-40 run-pass offense, that's because of the quarterbacks they have. It's not a 60-40 run-pass offense with Matthew Stafford. Yeah.
T-Money Sacktown, what's up, T-Money? Vish, do not compare your Nickelodeon with our Nickelodeon. You kids don't know what it means to watch Nickelodeon shows these days are lame. Yeah, when I was a kid, there was a lot of like live action Nickelodeon shows that were kind of classic-y, and then the Rugrats, Doug. I don't know if kids watch Doug anymore, but Doug was just
T Money. You know what? T Money Sacktown. This is big cap. This is big cap. All you. Oh, my time was better. My time was better. Drake and Josh, SpongeBob. That's what Nickelodeon was all about. Come on.
First of all, I've never heard of Drake and Josh. Can I just say that? Never heard of them. SpongeBob did come out, I want to say middle school for me, and it's all I love SpongeBob. I watch SpongeBob today. So you cannot be too old for SpongeBob.
I wasn't allowed to watch. I watched SpongeBob, but I'd have to change the channel when my dad came into the room because he thought SpongeBob was educational poison for my brain. He thought that it would somehow make me dumber, so he didn't want me watching SpongeBob. But like, I needed to watch SpongeBob. Dad, I gotta talk to the kids at school about SpongeBob. They all watch SpongeBob.
All the cultural references.
What happens tomorrow if I call somebody on the phone and I go, "Hello, is this the Krusty Krab?" And when they say, "No, this is Patrick," I don't know what to say. Like, come on,
Dad. Ron
what if I don't know about the Goofy Goobers?
Ron says just a friendly reminder that we own the Rams. Jared Goff, though, he's not on that team anymore. Okay, I need to go watch some Nickelodeon. This has been a really good show, educational. I thought it was fun to really put 2 more rings in the 49ers pantheon. They're now 7-time Super Bowl winner, and that was just something we did. We knocked out on a Tuesday afternoon. So you're welcome.
Do you mind if I respond to something real quick?
Yes.
4D9R says, Vish, Matthew Stafford never made the Rams good. Jimmy made the 2016 Niners 2-14, 13-3. If you're going by that logic, Matthew Stafford was drafted by the 0-16 Lions. They made the playoffs. In 2009, they were the 0-16 Lions. They made the playoffs in 2011 with Jim Schwartz as their coach.
That is true.
So, and they couldn't run the football. Matthew Stafford threw for 5,000 yards that season.
That is true. That is true. Vish, great show. Thank you very much. I want to come back to the beginning. Vish laid it out why there is no quarterback competition. Go back and watch it if you haven't already. It's very interesting. I'm done for the day. Ooh, actually, I might not be. I'm supposed to go on with me and my dad with Amin, although Amin has to hit me up with some. We have to do a little pre-planning. He has to hit me up. We have to have a little production meeting. Amin,
those questions in. Amin the dream.
Otherwise, we're gonna have to push it back because we need to do a little production planning. I mean, I know you can handle it, but this is the big time now. So, Vish, thank you very much. Amin, I'll talk to you in a minute. Everyone else, I will see you later. Take care.